Good afternoon, everyone. Hope things are well. Finally, Newcastle is looking to do business in the transfer window. It has been stated today by several journalists that Newcastle is waiting until the start of July for when the PSR year refreshes. Newcastle would then go out and just be able to spend the money that we want to spend this transfer window. And you can understand Newcastle perhaps being hesitant on the PSL because you've got to remember last summer we lost Yankuba Minta, we lost Elliot Anderson to different Premier League clubs, not to mention we lost Amanda and Murdad behind the scenes. And Newcastle clearly wanted to make sure we did not make the same mistake again. And it's been a bit of a restructuring process behind the scenes, and we know the likes of Paul Mitchell going out the door, that Newcastle is still behind the scenes just trying to figure out what they are going to do in this transfer window. But in terms of transfers, next week onwards is when Newcastle will start to bring players in. Very positive and ambitious news on social media today, and I know you guys have probably already seen it, and we'll get into it in just a moment. But let's just say the obvious thing now. I can't wait to see who Newcastle brings in this transfer window. I can't wait to see what the club does this summer. We've got ourselves back into Champions League against the odds. We are playing in the Champions League again next season. I know we've done it, and it's still something that until I see the ball come out and Newcastle has that number, I still hasn't quite clicked in yet. I'd love to see some of those games next season, and we are going to see it happen. But of course, Newcastle needs transfers not just so we can compete in the Champions League, but also to make sure we can continue to do well in the Premier League. 2 weeks' time, the players are back training, and as for the Asian tour, that's within a month. So especially for that tour out in Asia after the Celtic game, Newcastle will be looking to globalise our fan base and, of course, have new players being shown off out there to help bring new supporters in. So it's a massive summer for us. It's going to go well. And make sure you guys are sticking around the channel for every step of that journey, because I've had a couple of days off, a couple of days to just enjoy my downtime while I have it, because I'm expecting next week onwards it's going to be hectic. Shirt printing vlogs, we're going to be out, we're going to be doing a lot, and I can't wait to see Newcastle. I can't wait to see what we get done. But make sure you stay tuned and subscribe. Now, as for transfer news, let's just get straight into it. We'll start off with James Trafford and what the likes of Fabrizio Romano has said about him. He said that negotiations are now underway. Newcastle and Burnley are talking about the potential sale of James Trafford to Newcastle. Incredible goalkeeper at his age now. For how young he is, won the World Cup without conceding for our national team at a youth level. Burnley, yes, okay, didn't have a great time when they were last in the Premier League, but he's had a very good year in the Championship, up-and-coming goalkeeper, and for me, the competition with him and Nick Pope, that is healthy competition, and it's exactly the sort of competition Newcastle needs. If we are expected to keep Dubravka for one more year, 3 goalkeepers in there, all reliable, and I feel like it's especially for Trafford, it's the experience and the capabilities of playing, not just with good goalkeepers alongside him, but also with a good defence in front of him. As long as we aren't playing £40 million, I've got no issue with this deal. For me, it has to be below £30 million, but anything under £30 million, I think it's a good deal, and I think it's exactly what Newcastle should be doing in terms of our goalkeeper situation. Still got a few too many goalkeepers lingering around, in my opinion. John Ruddy, Gillespie, they're not getting paid an awful amount of money, so I don't mind them just sitting in the club, doing their bits for the training ground. But Vlak Dimos needs to be let go. Still got some value in him. Greek national team goalkeeper. Eddie Howe clearly doesn't want him. He's a PSR sign to help Nottingham Forest out so we could sell Anderson to them. We don't need him. Let's just get rid of Vlak Dimos, clear him off the books, get some of the wages opened up. But other than that, goalkeeper situation should be sound. Now, as for the big one, Giorgio Scalvini, the Inter Milan 21-year-old centre-half, only played a handful of games in the Serie A for Inter Milan last season, but ambitious signing. A lot of you guys seem to like him now. I'm going to be honest, I've been following Scalvini's career for 2 hours. I've been following this guy for 2 hours. I've had a look into him after seeing the reports, and in the 2 hours, I can say, from what I've seen of him, looks like a very good player. Looks like someone that, in my opinion, I felt Newcastle always needed at one stage to get 2 centre-halves, an experienced centre-half and an up-and-coming centre-half. Now, Botman is supposed to be the up-and-coming centre-half. He still is, but unfortunately he's had a bit of a nightmare of the ACL injuries. And we speak about ACL injuries now because Scalvini is coming into the football club after picking up quite a serious ACL injury now. That always worries me a little bit. I know the obvious example now you can say, well, look at Tina Livramento, Adam. We signed Tina Livramento. He came off an ACL injury at Southampton. Look how good he's been for Newcastle. And that is a fair point, and I don't think there's any exception here. Scalvini, if he comes into the football club, someone that's going to probably start off on the bench and slowly get his way into the team. And he's exactly the sort of centre-half we do need. Now, Burn, Shaw, as much as I love the pair of them that are in their 30s now, they will start to regress, especially playing 3 matches in a week. Champions League football and 2 Premier League games in the same week. You will see how experienced centre halves, they will start to feel a little bit. I like to Trippier be the same as well. Anyone that's in their 30s now at Newcastle, they will not be able to play 3 games in a week, and it's important for us to make sure that our cover is there available, and bringing in a centre half is exactly what Newcastle should be doing now. If you had a look at Liverpool's social media page and what they've been doing, they're set to sell Darwin Núñez to Napoli now. I don't think there's any issue if anyone wants to mention Isak now. The issue I think is that I reckon Liverpool are going to sign Martin Gay, especially like to Núñez going out the door. They're going to sell a couple of big players in there, Liverpool, to try and get some additional player money available to bring in extra players. I reckon they'll sign Martin Gay. That's always been a transfer link for Newcastle. So with us losing out on Mark, we can just bring someone else in. And Scalvini seems to be a fantastic option. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I watched this guy for his entire career because I have not, but someone that Newcastle want to keep an eye on. We'll see what happens to this one, but it has been reported from multiple Italian sources that Newcastle is looking to bring him in as our key transfer target in this window. Now, going away from the Italian league and of course looking back at Newcastle, we'll find out quite a few things over the next week now. As we mentioned before, like to John Ruddy, we'll find out next week what players Newcastle is planning on sticking around. We know from Newcastle United's official media pages that they have looked into bringing John Ruddy and Callum Wilson back for another year. John Ruddy, again, I've got nothing to say about him, to be honest. Gets paid a little, he's just there to be a training ground goalkeeper. Wilson still is one that I hope that we let go of. Wilson's had a fantastic time at the club, but ultimately we have to move on from him now if Newcastle want to be able to seriously progress. But next week we'll find out whether Wilson will stick around Newcastle or not. I've heard a few people that went to the Sam Fender concert that's seen Wilson there, who are having a good conversation with him, and from what I've heard from other people, it does sound like he's out the door now, but we'll wait and see just in case Newcastle does decide to bring him back. But for me, he's had his time. Let's move on, bring someone brand new in. But we'll find out next week in regards to the likes of him. We already know the likes of Elanga that Newcastle is looking at potential options out wide from the Premier League, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that progresses. I still feel like that's the big option this summer. As good as Jacob Murphy has been, we need a fresh attacking player to come. I think especially towards the back end of last season, seeing the likes of Isak, Gordon had not been keen on at all since his suspension, the likes of Barnes as well. I think Newcastle's attack has become a little stagnated, seems to just be unable to click it together in the last few games this season. Just seemed a bit tired, a bit leggy, and especially now we need some fresh attackers to come in just to liven things up a bit. But if Newcastle were able to do that, like João Pedro link, like Elanga link, we'll get one of these big key players in. Once Newcastle does that, I feel like that will completely ignite our team, because especially back end of last season, the attack just wasn't all there for me. As for Dan Burns' latest interview, which he has conducted with Jake Humphries over on his podcast, he stated that Eddie Howe watches the opposition team 8 or 9 times during the week ahead of a match day. Now, how good is that, by the way? 8 or 9 times he sits there, watches the opposition team, tactically looking into how he can get his best possible lineup and best possible tactics set up to play against every team in the Premier League. And while, of course, we are looking at how good Eddie Howe is now, I want to also remind you all of how bad things were before Eddie Howe. Do you think Steve Bruce would have been sat there watching opposition teams throughout the week and watching about how he can tactically break down teams? No. The guy who was in Portugal half the time, he was on holiday during the week, never mind watching the opposition teams and watching how we can beat them, did the bare minimum. You can see our players, look how tired, how leggy our players were. Fabian Shaw, Joe Linton, we had these sort of players before the takeover, and just look at how bad they were. They couldn't run to save their lives. They were incredibly fatigued, incredibly lazy, and just had no fitness in them. And that's because of a lazy mindset and a lazy manager, which we had. And I know that was a long time ago, and the point of this video is not to bring up old times, but by bringing up old times, it shows us how good we are now and how far we are now because of Eddie Howe. Now, Eddie Howe is the guy that's brought the best out in players. So even in this transfer window, if we are linked with a player, which you guys might look at and go, well, that's not the best possible transfer link, or that's not a player I don't think would improve Newcastle. The reality is, he's the one that will improve the player. Eddie Howe will get the best out of every player, and as long as the player gives 100% and works his arse off for Eddie Howe, he'll get the best out of him. And just remember that in this transfer window, because I think especially I'm the same. All of you watching, we can be quite opinionated when we see a player. We either like them or dislike them, but the reality is, we aren't the ones that are going to get the best out of him. The manager will do that. Eddie Howe knows how to do that, and I trust this guy. And I hope he gets the support in this window to be able to make his own decisions in regard to transfer, like especially with Paul Mitchell last summer. He had one guy wanted one thing, Eddie Howe wanted a different thing. Let's just make sure it's what Eddie Howe wants this time. We can just have a smooth and successful window, and we will do that. It's going to be very exciting over the next few days, so stay tuned and make sure you stay updated to see that, because once it starts, it is not going to stop. Newcastle will have a busy month. They'll be getting players in as soon as possible, and we have to do that. Massive season coming up. We need to continue doing well. We need to not just be able to bring players in, but also need to make sure that the players we currently have are all happy and all ready to go for next season, because it's a massive season. We've seen us win silverware. I want to see more. I want to see the club achieve more. So let's make sure we do that next season. But stay tuned, guys. Enjoy it. If you had the choice now over the next month, what player would you want to bring to Newcastle? Let's say you're the gaffer, or let's say you're part of the public investment fund. Who would you bring to Newcastle? What player would you bring? I would love to hear you guys' opinions. But take care, and we will see you all in the next one.